learn how to actually say no. Y'all. What's up, you guys? It's your girl Taylor, and today we're going to be talking about normalizing your non-negotiables, i.e. your deal breakers. So let's get into the video. We're going to give you guys all the tea, okay? We're going to be talking about all the tea. What's up, guys? It's your girl Taylor, and welcome to Taylor Winbushtv. Okay, so I do have my notes here, so if you see me looking down, that is why. I found that this is really important to discuss because a lot of times we don't really have them. I think normalizing non-negotiables and actually sticking to them has to do with creating boundaries and actually following through on those boundaries. And I feel like women in particular, we're less likely to follow through on our boundaries, and we're more likely to kind of like bend we're a little bit more flexible. I was actually having this conversation with one of my friends last night, and the scenario that was given is if a male has a very hard boundary, they're more likely to follow through with it as opposed to a woman. We are more pleasing and we're more likely to please other people and compromise for sticking to our boundaries, which ends up hurting us in the long run. So we're going to be talking all about that. And I have a list of things that I want to discuss when it comes to deal breakers. We're going to be talking about what they actually are, how to establish them, and how to actually stick beside and follow through when it comes to leaving certain situations in regards to your deal breakers. So, I feel like when women walk away from a situation, you really shouldn't feel guilty. And it doesn't necessarily have to be women. When anyone walks away from a situation and they're doing what's best for them, you shouldn't feel guilty about it. And you shouldn't feel guilty about doing what's best for you, if that makes sense. So people also should not fault you or get angry if they really have your best interest in mind. They really shouldn't be getting angry or fault you for leaving a situation because you're doing what's best for you. And I feel like in order for you to do what's best for you, you have to actually know yourself. And that's also something sticky where you're getting into relationships or situations where you really don't know yourself and what you're willing to put up with and what can really trigger you. And I think that also boils down to self-awareness. So the T, sis. Okay, so non-negotiables are the same thing as deal breakers, which we already kind of discussed. And it's important to actually have these because if you don't, you can end up resenting the person that is actually doing what your deal breaker is. And you just never communicated it, but you just have an underlining unliking for that person and what they do. And that could cause resentment, which can lead down to other things that are not fruitful when it comes to relationships or friendships. So the context for this video is more so going to be about romantic relationships, but it also goes into like friendships as well. I think it's really important to have deal breakers when you are building your strong circle of friends, especially as an adult, because you are a reflection of your friends. And if there are certain things that they're doing and it doesn't appease you or it doesn't align with where you want to be in the future, you got to cut it off. So now let's get into, I read this article and it was basically talking about the top 6 reasons why people, or the top 6 deal breakers when it comes to romantic relationships. So the first one is your partner doesn't want the same thing as you. The other one is your partner abuses you. You're always fighting each other. You don't trust your partner. Number 5 says you're not your authentic self. I feel like this one's a really big one. If you're in some sort of scenario and you feel like you can't fully be yourself, that is definitely a red flag, and that should be a deal breaker for everybody. The last one is you feel like you're not appreciated. So that's what the article said, and I'll put the link down below if I can find it again. But now we're going to go on to, so we're really going to focus on the first reason, which is your partner doesn't want the same things as you. And I feel like all of these kind of intertwine based on the article. So let's talk about a couple of tips on how to actually identify your deal breakers. So number 1 is you have to actually understand what happiness looks like in your relationship. So what does that look like for you? And I think social media can kind of taint what happiness actually is. I think it's really important for you to understand what happiness looks like for you on a daily basis, not just on the highlight reel, but day in and day out. What's going to make you happy? What's going to make you happy when you come home? What's going to make you happy when you get up in the morning? Like, thinking about those things and really identifying the key factors on what makes you happy on a daily basis is really important. The other one is you have to actually list your values and take a look at how you spend your time and understand what's most important to you. And I think the really key factor here is understand how you spend your time on a day in, day out basis. This shows you what you prioritize and what kind of takes a seat on the back burner, to be honest. True story, ting, story time. So basically I was seeing this guy and the conversation came up about what our deal breakers are, or what are something that we were most concerned about when it comes to the relationship that we were pursuing at the time. And for me, it was the person didn't really like working out. Yeah. So for me, that's a really big deal. For some people, it's not. But for me, I personally know, and if I'm being realistic with myself, that's something that I do every single day. And for me to be happy and for me to enjoy that, I would like my partner to indulge in that activity with me and also push me in that area. So like, I have like a fitness Instagram page. I used to sell fitness packages. So like, it's very much a part of my lifestyle. And we had the conversation, cool. He was attempting to make changes for it, but he felt like he wasn't being his true self when he was doing that. And then we ended up having that conversation again, and we realized that, you know what, this isn't really a good fit, because if he feels like he's not being himself when he's doing that, and I feel like I personally would be frustrated with him if that were to continue on, or for him to not actually work out consistently. And I think for me in that scenario, I was willing to walk away from it because I just know that like that's not going to fit my lifestyle, and there's nothing wrong with that. He thought it was very superficial. I didn't, because it's just a part of my lifestyle, and that's just something that I would like to share with my partner on a very consistent basis. So it could, and my point in sharing that story is that it could be very small. But if you're real with yourself and it's a big deal to you, and if that's what you want, you have to be able to stick beside that, which we'll kind of talk about later in the video, about how to actually implement your deal breakers. So the other one is pay attention when you're immediately turned off, y'all. So tea time, ting. So whatever's gonna turn you off the quickest, that could also be a deal breaker. One time I was on this date with this guy, and after the first date, we were texting, whatever, yada, yada, yada. And he called me like a pet name. He called me Boo. And I was just like, isn't that too soon to be calling me that? And then he was just like, he kind of stopped for a little bit, and then he did it again. And this was probably within like 3 days, y'all. So like, it wasn't like a very significant amount of time. And I just didn't like that. It was an immediate turnoff, because it seemed very possessive too soon. And I just didn't like that. So after that, I told him that I don't think this was going to work out. So yeah, pay attention to what you're immediately turned off by. And then the other one is actually date. So understand what you can and cannot tolerate. And that also comes through dating. So some things you can only find out by dating. Like the situation I was just talking about, I only really found that out by dating. I knew that people did that, but I just didn't think someone was going to actually do that to me. And I just really wasn't feeling it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just wasn't giving what it need to give. So being able to date is really important when it comes to identifying what those deal breakers are. And yeah, girl, you got to actually get out there and date. So the other one is, now it's time to actually put this in action. And here's how to actually set boundaries for your deal breakers. So there are 6 tips that I have on how to actually implement your deal breakers and not feel bad about it. So the first one is pay attention sooner and be realistic. A lot of times we say, quote unquote, it's not that bad. But in reality, we could be settling for a cycle of disappointment and frustration. So I think we also have to be realistic with ourselves. A lot of times it's really great to be optimistic, but you also have to be a realist when it comes to what you can and cannot tolerate. And I think because you're dealing with another person, you have to be more realistic, because at that point you're just kind of like seeing potential and not seeing what they're giving you face value. So yeah, you have to pay attention sooner. And when you do pay attention sooner, it's easier to speak up about things because there's no feelings. there's no really like, it's a lot less complicated when you're ready to move out of the situation. The other one is look for patterns and triggers. So whatever is triggering you to feel some type of way about a situation, understand what that looks like and see if it actually, so say if someone does a deal breaker one time, maybe you guys have a discussion about it and they keep doing it, then that's one thing. But if you guys have a discussion about it and you don't see it again, I would still keep an eye out for if it does happen again, like pattern wise, but really keep an eye out on how consistently they maybe do your deal breaker, or if that's something that you can really see yourself dealing with, honestly. The other one is be honest about what you need and actually communicate. Don't just guess, get an actual answer. So I think actually having this conversation early on is really important, especially if you are serious about dating. And you're being really intentional about dating. Have a conversation about what your deal breakers are, so that way you can understand, like, okay, maybe am I doing something that they can't live with, or they is a deal breaker for them, and then vice versa. And then you can kind of maneuver on how to figure out if you want to pursue that relationship with that person or not. This also goes to friendships as well. I think it's easier to have, obviously, if you're friends with someone, you might be able to pick up on what their deal breaker is based on like other people. But when it comes to their encounters with other people, but have that conversation. It's not as bad as you think. It's actually going to help you out. It's going to help you like not waste your time, not waste their time. You want to be able to have that conversation and be open and transparent, especially if you're looking for something serious. Okay, so the other one is don't be afraid to walk away. Don't feel guilty, and learn how to actually say no. Y'all, you have to be able to stick up for yourself, and you have to be okay with not being in a relationship. And I feel like, and you have to be okay with walking away if you feel like something is not good enough. And I think people are tied to the idea that like, maybe this is the best thing for me. Like this person has all these other qualities, and the answer is no. There's a difference between compromise and deal breakers or non-negotiables. And if that person is doing something that falls along the lines of your non-negotiables, you need to stick by what you said and follow through, and actually execute what your list is. And I really want to put an emphasis on, there's a difference between non-negotiables and compromises. Compromises is something that you can kind of work with. For me, the last situation I was talking about, the whole gym thing, I was trying to work with that, to be honest. Because I was like, you know what, like maybe it's not that bad. I was never ever placed in that scenario before. Every person that I've been with has always been some sort of effort to go to the gym. So I was like, you know what, maybe this is, honestly, I was like, maybe this is a sign for me to try something new and open my horizon, yada, yada, yada. And then I realized, I was like, could Taylor realistically, like 6 months from now, would you be as attracted to the person, or would you be like, because for me, it also boils down to attractiveness, having those physical attributes and goals. That's super attractive to me. So could I see that being a frustration 6 months from now? And the answer is yes. But that's something that I personally can't compromise on, but someone can rant over. There's a difference between compromise and deal breakers. Just keep that in mind. And it's okay to try to compromise, but be real about it. Once you get into the scenario, if you really can't see yourself doing it for a long amount of time, then just take that for what it is. And then the last one is actually keep note or write down other red flags. Keep a pros versus cons list. Is that person truly a right fit for you? And I feel like this one was really important for me. So having that pros and cons list for what you want in a relationship prior to getting into the relationship, and then also writing down any sort of red flags that you may see in the person. And then you couple that with deal breakers. You know how much easier it is for you to make a decision, and not be in your feelings about making the decision when you have your list of red flags that person is completely doing. And then you also have those deal breakers. You just couple those together, and if it becomes too much, it's easier for you to make a decision to actually say no and to leave. So definitely would recommend doing that. So you guys, that wraps up today's video and topic on normalizing non-negotiables and actually following through with your deal breakers. If you guys like this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. If you have any comments or you want some, tell me what you guys think in the comments below. I really want to hear your stories. Has there ever been like a scenario where you were too scared to implement your deal breakers, or were you really liberated to or empowered to implement your deal breakers, and how did you feel after that? I think it's so empowering when you are able to walk away from a situation knowing that you made the right choice. So until next time, it's your girl Taylor. Peace.